We're talking Kevin Hart's shortest Oscar hosting gig ever, Grammys and Golden Globes nominations, some big surprises, Les Moonves New York Times Bombshell, and CNN's Bomb Scare. All this and much more on Meet the Hollywood Press for December the 9th, 2018. Hi, everybody. I'm Bianca Garza in for Alina Vission today. And now, your host of Meet the Hollywood Press, the one and only Joseph Kapsch.
Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Meet the Hollywood Press. Welcome, Bianca, filling in for the lovely Alina Vission.
Yes, great to be here yet again. Thanks, Joseph.
Thank you for coming back. I want to also give a shout out to Alina because it's her birthday.
Yes.
She's up in Malibu having a brunch, so happy birthday, Alina.
Cheers.
So much this week to parse that we actually had to add a third panelist for this messiness because that's the Kevin Hart Oscar, so I want to introduce my panel. I have rejoining us. I think you're a five-timer club at this point for our show.
I lost track.
Lost track. Wow. Anita Bennett, founder and managing editor of Urban Hollywood 411, rejoins the Meet the Hollywood Press table.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming back. Jarrett Hill.
Yes.
Esteemed politics and pop culture journalist.
Makes me sound really special.
It does. Yeah. Also, I should say the vice president of the Black Journalists Association.
National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles.
Correct. And you will have seen Jarrett's work in New York Times, NBC News, and The Hollywood Reporter.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, of course. And
KJ returns again. KJ Matthews, entertainment journalist who's working as of late with the BBC.
Correct.
And you've also been with Extra. You've been with
CNN, German, DW English. I've been with them all.
We have an esteemed panel today to talk about all of this. So without any further ado, we have to jump in. So obviously this week, Kevin Hart. For viewers, very quickly, Kevin Hart was named this year's Oscar host. And almost a couple days or so after, like we live in this culture right now in 2018 that people start scouring your Twitter. Apparently there were some homophobic tweets in his Twitter feed dating back to 2011. And the Academy then contacted him and wanted Kevin to apologize for the tweets or they were going to move on as host. And then he first, actually, before the Academy asked him to apologize, I should back up for a second. He knew that people were finding it and they were starting to make noise on social media, and then he took to his Instagram, and the clip we're going to run right now first. So let's watch that.
I swear, man, our world is becoming beyond crazy. And I'm not going to let the craziness frustrate me or anger me, especially when I worked hard to get to the mental space that I am at now. My team calls me, oh my God, Kevin, the world is upset about tweets you did years ago. Oh my God. Guys, I'm almost 40 years old. If you don't believe that people change, grow, evolve as they get older, I don't know what to tell you. If you want to hold people in a position where they always have to justify or explain their past, then do you.
Okay, come back in from that clip. So he posted that. That was before the Academy then took action. So then the Academy contacted Kevin and basically was like, apologize, and then we can move forward with this, okay? And obviously then GLAAD and all of these other organizations and people that represent LGBTQ rights got involved, with statements as it goes. So I'm going to start with the first question. Anita, do you think he made the right decision in how he handled this and then subsequently stepping down?
I think this was a prime example of someone not knowing how to deal with negative press. I wish that Kevin had hired a crisis management PR person. I think he totally could have survived this.
Yeah.
The tweets were old, some of them dating back to 2009. Mm-hmm. I think what did more damage was that video you just played where Kevin didn't care enough to get out of bed, to get dressed, to put a shirt on. It didn't send a good signal, and I think that's what ignited even more controversy. Do you guys agree?
Oh, God, absolutely. I could not concur with you even more. When I saw that video on Instagram, I thought, wait a minute, you're an international superstar. This video on Instagram is going to be seen all around the world. And the first image we have of you discussing something so big is you in bed.
Yeah.
rubbing your eyes, acting like you have something else better to do.
It's like waiting
It
for
was a
room
wrong-
service.
Yes, it was a wrong message, and the thing is, he's tone deaf. We understand that
Yeah.
now by just looking at the video. But what's funny is, in the end, he ended up giving us exactly what we wanted.
Yes.
Was the apology to the LGBTQ community. So why not do that in the beginning?
I think everybody handled this wrong, like on all sides.
Yeah.
I think the Academy.
So you're
should
playing
have done-
Trump, all sides.
No. I think there's blame on both sides.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think like the Academy knew who Kevin Hart was. Like, this wasn't like he said this like in some secret meeting and like it was uncovered in a document that was released by WikiLeaks, right? Like, he said these things in public.
Yes.
He said these things in his specials. He said these things on Twitter. So it was like, you can't be mad at him for things that he did before you approached him.
Exactly.
So then I think Kevin handled it wrong because like, Kevin, say like, I'm a different person. I don't mean those things. And like, I feel like he danced around that in every way that he could.
Yes.
And like, this was an opportunity for him to say like, I'm a different person. I said those things. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just, I said them, and I understand that they're hurtful, and that wasn't my intention. But like, even now, he's like, well, you know, I didn't feel like it was like everyone handled this wrong.
Do you think
And
Wrong
I
guy.
think
Excuse me.
you definitely have a point about the Academy, but we should also consider the demographics of the Academy members.
Yes.
I don't think
Good point.
they're on Twitter. I don't think they're on Facebook regularly.
they approached him.
They did approach him, but what they should do, and they probably will do from now on, is employ an organization that will check people's social media channels and do deep online background searches to make sure nothing like this happens again.
And what's interesting too, speaking of that, I'd love to know what our panelists think, Joseph, about what's happened since then. Is that the support, like Nick Cannon calling out Amy Schumer, Sarah Silverman, Chelsea Handler, saying here are other comedians who have used offensive words, and you know, coming to publicize it, saying you're a comedian. Most of these comedians are going to have something, as you were saying, Anita, that is going to be offensive.
Well, here's the thing. If we are now in this culture, and this is the same thing with James Gunn, when they dug up the old tweets and he got fired from Guardians of the Galaxy, do we now just live in a society that everything from your past dating back as 10 to 20 years is now fireable or something to have you, like, where is the line is basically what I'm saying, because I personally thought if Kevin had come out immediately in that first in the bed video and just apologized right there, I'm sorry, I've evolved, I you know, or it could have said like Joy Reid, I was hacked. So I'm hiring a firm to check if my Twitter was hacked. I'll get back to you. But no, in all jokes aside, if he could have just said that from the start, I personally, as a gay man, am like, yeah, I accept people evolve. I accept apologies. We've all said stuff we regret. I think it was just he was digging in his heels, and I think that comes with when you're this global movie star making the kind of money. It's like his ego was getting the best of
Well,
him.
but Kevin didn't need this either, right? It's not like it's like a huge boost to his career. It's not a huge check. It's not like there's some new audience that this brings him. So it's not like he needed this opportunity to do something for his career.
Yeah.
But like I keep looking at the Oscars on this one first. Like none of this is new.
Yeah.
And so like the idea that you want him to like separate from the show because he said these things 10 years ago seems crazy to me.
Kevin didn't need it, but he wanted it.
That's what I was about to say.
Absolutely.
He said it was the biggest
Absolutely.
thing for him. He's always wanted. He grew up watching the Oscars.
I
So
get
for him
that.
to say now, you know what, I'm going to go back to doing what I love doing, which is going out to Australia, which is what he's now showing on Instagram, and doing what he loves doing, which is making people laugh. Well, no one asked you to stop making people laugh.
Yeah.
We just asked you to address something that you did a while back. And what I think is interesting is that he said he's already addressed it. We'll address it again. What you should have said, the way to handle this would have been, you know what, I've addressed this many times. I addressed it in a Rolling Stones interview a couple of years ago. For the people who haven't read that article or didn't hear, let me reiterate what I said back then, which is I was a different person. I've evolved. I was immature. It was silly of me. For the people who may not have heard that, that's all he had to say. It was very simple.
Exactly, and this went on all day because after the first video you just played, he posted a second video. And he said, the Academy called me, they asked me to apologize, and quote, I passed on the apology. So here we have him being very defiant and a little immature. Indignant, a little immature.
Go ahead, Jack.
Did you want to play the clip?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's just run a little piece of that second clip.
I just got a call from the Academy, and that call basically said, Kevin, apologize for your tweets of old, or we're going to have to move on and find another host. Talking about the tweets from 2009, 2010. I chose to pass. I passed on the apology. The reason why I passed is because I've addressed this several times. This is not the first time this has come up. I've addressed it. I've spoken on it. I've said where the rights and wrongs were. I've said who I am now versus who I was then. I've done it. I've done it. I'm not going to continue to go back and tap into the days of old when I moved on and I'm in a completely different space in my life. The same energy that went into finding those old tweets could be the same energy put into finding the response to the questions that have been asked years after years after years.
Okay, come back in from that. So go ahead.
So first of all, no one from the Academy said, apologize for your tweets of old. No one even speaks like that. Like, just first things first.
Just in case.
Just in case we're unclear, like, they did not say tweets of old. But the sad part of this for me was like the passing on the apology. If you've already apologized for this, you've already spoken on it, like, what does it hurt you to say, like, exactly as you have said, this is something I've addressed, blah, 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 I'm a different person. What really frustrated me about this was the missed opportunity. Because there was an opportunity for, like, I'm a black gay man, and so, like, I can't look at this through the lens, without the lens of my blackness, and I can't look at it without the lens of my sexuality. Yeah. And I felt like this was a great opportunity for this black, straight man to stand up and say, like, I'm not homophobic anymore. That's something that I said that I regret. And I think it would have been great. But I think it was also like a hyper-masculine thing of feeling like I'm going to take a stand and I don't have to do that. Yeah. And that is what kind of pissed me off about it.
Well, here's the interesting that you just brought up, though. So here's what the thing in question was. He said that he apologized, but then when you actually looked at the Rolling Stone article from 2014 where he addressed the 2011 tweets, it wasn't an apology. No. It was, like, very vague in the fact that it was like, I've moved on. It was a little bit more of the, like, I don't want to go back and talk about things. I've moved on from that. So he never actually, it wasn't like a full-throated apology, you know? I do think, okay, so of course GLAAD, for the first, you know, sometimes they get involved, sometimes they don't. Don't even get me started. That's a whole other show about GLAAD's usefulness or not. But GLAAD's president then comes out and says, Keven shouldn't have stepped down. He should have stepped up. Short of, like, did they want him to do an opening number with Drag Race? I mean, like, what was he going to do as Oscar host to step up? I didn't really quite get what they meant by that.
For me, stepping up would have been apologizing and saying, I was wrong. I shouldn't have said this. I shouldn't have handled it the way that I did. And moving. Like, I feel like this could have been squashed in under a day, and we would have not been talking about it by the weekend.
Yeah. He could have actually turned into a funny skit, too.
Absolutely.
Where the world comes down against Keven and open the Oscars like that, and it's like, oh, have I learned my lesson?
With his tweets on screen.
You know, we just laugh with his tweets on screen, and then like all these stars come and saying, oh yeah, you hear Keven did this, and made light of it, and like, I get it, I know I messed up type of thing. People love it when you show humility like that, and when you show that you're human and you make mistakes.
You can make fun of yourself.
We're all for that because we all understand making mistakes, but he wasn't even willing to go that far at all.
Yeah.
So Keven stepped down actually before anything could have been done. Like, they didn't fire him. Keven stepped down.
Correct.
Right? So, but what do you, but again, this, I want to just get to the core of this.
Do we really know that they didn't fire him? Because all day he dug his heels in and said, I'm not going to apologize. I passed on the apology. And then a few hours later, he apologized. Yeah. So I'm wondering if he was pushed out.
Well, it does say, you know, he states that I do not want to be a distraction on a night that should be celebrated by so many amazing, you know, talented artists. And
I don't want to be a distraction is always language for I was fired.
Read the lines. Read between the lines. What do you guys think?
I mean, come on, right? Like, that's what a senator said when they resigned.
You know, the interesting thing that he says in one of his Instagram videos is that, you know, the same energy that went into digging up these old tweets, you could have used his explanation to the tweets. And I'm like, first of all, you just said they're internet trolls. So internet trolls' jobs aren't to be fair and balanced. That's our job as a journalist. So internet trolls, so to speak, would not have dug up the other side. No. That's your job to say, yes, internet trolls are out after me, but let me tell you what you don't know, what you didn't hear. I absolutely apologize, and I discussed this back in 2015. Here's what I said. I'm happy to readdress it again. That's how you handle that. But see, I don't know who in his camp was talking to him. When he says his team called him, who is that? Is that a crisis management person? Is that a publicist?
Probably his publicist, I would think his publicist or his manager.
Or his wife. Who was holding that camera when he was in bed?
It happened so fast. Whoever he did consult with, I think we could all attest to. He didn't think it through, and he didn't get the right information to say, what am I losing by not having this appearance, and what am I winning? And the bottom line is, I think too, as viewers, like the Oscars, the ratings are down. Last year they were down. We want in Hollywood, I think, as members of the press here, to have a show that supports and celebrates people, and we get so distracted. It really, he would have been an excellent host, and it's really, if he had fun with it, it's a shame that the viewers are really ultimately losing here as well.
Yeah.
Can I ask us something about, so within the urban community, was that well known about the 2011? Because when this story came out, and I ran news sites, I didn't know that he previously had that history. This was like the first I learned of it.
You know, the thing is, I think, I'm not speaking for obviously everybody in the black community, but there are a number of black comics who say homophobic things on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I think that if you have to look at all the black comics out there, he wouldn't rank among the highest. He wouldn't even be on that map. I mean, I have heard a lot worse by a lot of other comedians in stand-up. With regards to being gay or using the F word, you know, or some things like that. I mean, it's all inappropriate and it's all unacceptable, but I'm just saying he's not the only one.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, you're saying, was it well known that he was, or that he had
that he had those tweets?
I honestly, I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay.
I kind of assumed Kevin Hart was homophobic, just... I mean, sorry.
Yeah.
I kind of tend to assume with a lot of straight black men, and I don't want to like go down the list of people, but like a lot of, and sometimes it's not like in a direct statement. It's not that you drop the F-bomb or that you say something specifically homophobic, but it's the way that you talk about gender. It's the way that you talk about boys or something that a man shouldn't be doing or that kind of thing. And like I've heard that from Kevin for a long time. So like the idea that he was homophobic was as surprising as like Donald Trump told a lie.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Okay.
And SNL last night, you know, came to his defense as well, and it was really interesting.
Michael Che
was saying
during the
news. It was kind of an interesting kind of take on that.
Well, did you feel that the response did divide across like, well, obviously gay, but did it divide across racial lines? Was it like Kevin's like, you know?
I don't think so.
No.
I mean, here's the thing. What Kevin said in his stand-up acts, I've watched his stand-up comedy, so I was aware that he said some things like this. Now, do I go through his Twitter feed? No, I didn't know he had tweeted these things. No. For me, what I found the most offensive, it's, you know, it's like comedians say these things and we forget about them, but the defiance, the refusing to apologize, or if he had simply said, I've evolved, I've changed, I really don't feel that way, you know, I was just trying to be funny. All would have been forgiven, at least on my part. But it was him digging his heels in and continuing to make these videos. That's what bothered me the most. And I think that's what bothered a lot of people.
Well, I think that the reason why he was doing that, too, is because he was angry that someone had dug up this stuff to try to get him. And that he feels that there's haters out there and there's internet trolls that are always out to get him. And in his mind, I'll be damned if I'm going to let them get me. That's his attitude, but not understanding how it plays on an international stage. But I could see maybe his mindset having that, you know, I'm not going to let them get the best of me. I'm not going to apologize for the 55th time. These are just people who are trying to ruin my chances with the Oscars or ruin my career or ruin me for some other reason. You know, maybe that's...
I think to your question about from the racial perspective, I think if I'm Kevin Hart, I do feel like this happened to me because I'm a black man. Yeah. I feel like there have been plenty of people who have said plenty of homophobic things. I think there's a racial component. I think there's a political component. Yes. Everything kind of is falling in the intersection of the politics and pop culture right now, and like everyone is super sensitive in a way that may or may not be healthy, which is a whole other conversation. But I think that I think if you were to ask Kevin, his blackness was definitely a part of the way this happened.
And that's how I was feeling about it, because I think of it this way. If it had been a white famous actor in Hollywood that they dug up tweets where they had used the N-word, would they be getting fired? Would they be stepping down? Would they be apologizing, and an apology would be enough?
Well, I don't know that that's a parallel situation.
I know a lot of people say it was race, but here's the thing. Roseanne is off TV because of something she tweeted.
Exactly.
Kathy Griffin's career was derailed for a long time, to the point where she was in the media crying, talking about no one will hire me because of that Trump tweet. So
Megyn Kelly doesn't have a show.
These are white women. So, yeah, Megyn Kelly doesn't have a show.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, being racist is not cute right now, right? Like, it's not a good time to be a racist person. But I think also as a black man, I think, or as a black woman, I think being a person of color, I think you always feel the level of scrutiny is higher on you. And I mean, I'm not telling you guys this, right? But like, you feel the level of scrutiny is always higher. You feel like the magnifying glass is always on you a little bit closer, and you always have to question whether or not race or racism came into the way that you've been treated in a situation, the same way that I'm sure as women in a situation you might ask yourself, like, did this happen because I was a woman, or did it happen because I did, you know,
I'm just not buying into any of this, because James Gunn is no longer the director of the Guardians of the Galaxy because of his old tweets that were about a decade old.
I'm not saying this was exclusively race. I'm saying that if I were Kevin Hart, I would definitely wonder how my race played into it.
Okay, so bring this back to this past Twitter thing and going back to the social media part then. Are we okay that we live in this society now, that like we can be held accountable for 10-year-old tweets for something today in our career?
He's a comedian too. I mean, he's going to have things that are offensive. It's
I
part
find
of,
it to be extreme in this case, because I think, like, James Gunn, to me, different. Pedophilia is just something you never, I just don't find there any comedy in that. But to me, it was like, and I'm saying this as a gay man, and I'm like, he evolved. He says he evolved. We don't know what it's in his heart, right? If he says he's evolved, he's evolved. There hasn't been tweets like that since 2011, so you got to take him at his word. I was okay with an apology. Billy Eichner, who was also an openly gay actor, had some of the best tweets about this, because he basically was saying, we just want an apology. Just apologize properly. And then he said, whether you think it or not, Hollywood still has a deep issue with gay men. And he says it doesn't look like that on the surface, because, and he's kind of right. You're like, well, Ryan Murphy has so many shows, and there's Shonda Rhimes with this, so many diverse characters. But it's like, there is something to be said about that, because if you actually look, how many actual gay men have been put in like blockbuster male lead roles in 2018? I don't, name me one. Where they're playing a straight man in a big, so there's something to be said.
Or even more, a gay person. Playing a gay person.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So there's something to be said about the standards. Like, I just feel like why are we not like, James Gunn fired, Roseanne fired, Kevin Hart, like, when is an apology enough, and when is it like you're supposed to be held accountable?
I think, too, where is your standing with the public? Are you liked? Are you someone that has a high Q rating, so to speak? Because you and I all know on this panel, there are certain things that if Donald Trump today were to say he apologized for, it wouldn't be good enough.
But if Oprah did?
If Oprah did, be different. There's certain things that Roseanne, if she had came out with an apology, which she probably did later, it wouldn't have been good enough. So a lot of our ability to forgive people and allow people to move past that and to say that they have evolved depends on how we feel about them personally. Yes. And I find that troubling in this day and time.
I have to sit with that, because I feel like ultimately, like, that's all based on something, right? Donald Trump wouldn't get away with an apology. When Donald Trump had the Access Hollywood tape, like, his apology wasn't received because no one believed him, right?
Well, let me tell you something.
That was so out of character for him.
Certain people in the evangelical community, you know what they said? It's not for us to judge. It's only for God. So they forgave him. I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but what I'm saying is that I heard that being used when that Access Hollywood tape evolved or was, put out there. People were willing to say, not for us to judge. Let God be the judge.
Yeah, but I think that was also like really convenient for those people who really wanted a Supreme Court justice. But that's like that's going down the political road a lot more.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
But then bringing it back in here, do you think the Academy was grossly negligent in the fact that they didn't scan his Twitter feed before this? I mean, knowing how he lives.
How are they to know?
What I just said, we're talking about what is the average age of the Academy members? Like 60s, 70s. I don't think these are people who are constantly on social media, but they do need to hire someone. There have been a lot of teaching moments from this that the Academy needs to do its due diligence, and these celebrities need better publicists.
Well, this is the first time.
I'm sorry, but this is a multi-million-dollar organization that runs an enormous industry. That's not an excuse for me anymore.
But if you look at some of their previous
not in 2018.
hosts, like, I don't think we needed to vet Billy Crystal. Okay, how many times did he host? I mean, times have changed, and they need to change with the times. But also, your Kevin Hart, your Roseanne Barrs, your Kathy Griffins, they need to stop putting all their comments straight on social media and maybe have someone vet what they're saying.
Well, so again, this is a political thing.
I'm
but
not talking about regular tweets. I'm
Right.
talking about statements.
Right.
He posted a lengthy
You're talking about his
video
response.
statement. His response,
Sure.
yes.
So I always say, like, anybody can say anything that they want to, but there's consequences, right? And
Yeah.
so, like, this started for me with, like, language, with, like, racial language. It was like, well, why can't we say X, Y, Z? It's like, you can say it, but there's consequences for that, right? If you want to be homophobic, be homophobic. But when it comes time for you to have some certain jobs, like, you might not get those opportunities because you're homophobic or because you're racist or because you're anti-immigrant or whatever it is. So I think that the PC culture is definitely getting potentially too strict. However, I do think, like, if you want to say something, feel free to say it, but know that you don't get to go into every room after you
The
say
list of who's going to host the Oscars is going to be shockingly small if we're going to start saying someone offended somebody back when they
people
were
have
in
been
fourth
saying
grade.
that.
I mean, look at so many stars have been arrested, have, committed murder, or been, in jail and then back and forth. I mean, we will have the shortest list if we're going to vilify people for past, consequences here. So you could vet them, but then you're going to go, okay, we have 5 people, and I don't even know who those 5 people could be.
The interesting thing was that the day before Keven got announced, Hollywood Reporter had an article where the headline was like, why the Oscar host is like the least wanted job in Hollywood right now.
Wow.
Which is kind of true, because you're sort of like, you go out there, you're putting yourself out there to either tank or do great in front of a dwindling audience that is going to keep going down. And even looking at the field of films, that's another conversation. It's going to keep dwindling as far as I'm concerned.
It's a legacy play, though, right? I mean, you can still do it, right?
absolutely.
Everyone was felt like if they called,
Of course.
Bragging rights.
It's what plays on your CNN obituary for the rest of your life.
It's a nice box to check, Like I did that.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
So any final thoughts on this before we move on?
I think they're just going to call Chris Rock again. That's what they did. Like, didn't they lose an Oscar host, just 2 or 3 years ago? And they lost
Eddie Murphy, too.
Eddie Murphy,
Remember
right.
Eddie Murphy was
I
like
know he won't ever do it because he can't. But did you see Snoop Dogg's reaction to this on Instagram? It was
Love
absolutely hilarious.
What did he say?
He basically told them to tell the Academy to suck a you know what, and then he says F all of them, and then he ends it with and F the Grammys too. And I'm like, whoa, what did the Grammys do something? So I'm Googling, I'm trying to figure out what's going on with the Grammys.
I don't think
In my mind, the Grammys sat up and
But
got like, what did I do?
He did say
The
one,
censors
2
couldn't keep up
shows that
with
would want
Snoop.
him. He said,
Yeah.
why not just host the BET Awards or the Soul Train Awards, Kev? And I'm like,
He did that and it wasn't great. But,
I'd like to see Dave Chappelle host.
oh my God, he would.
Oh, you just
Talk about
brought me
controversy.
This is what we're gonna. I want
Well,
each of us.
Chris
There's
Rock.
5 of us in
Talk
the room.
about controversy.
Tell me who should host and why.
I would like to see Dave Chappelle host because he does a very smart brand of comedy. Did you see him hosting SNL? And he's not constantly on Twitter tweeting, so I don't know what tweets they would dig up.
But the idea that they would go to him after Kevin Hart because Kevin Hart was too controversial.
Well,
like, you know what I mean?
Dave, we know Dave would never do it anyway.
Well, yeah, that's fair.
Jared, who would you?
I would like to see a duo do it. I would like to see it be Tiffany Haddish and Maya Rudolph after last year. They were the highlight of the show last year.
show.
And everyone was like, "Oh my God, they should host next year." And now there seems to be an opening. So
Which actually did work with Sandra Oh and Andy Samberg. Them presenting together at the Emmys got them the Golden Globe gig.
Excited for that.
KJ, who would you have host
Chris Rock.
and why?
He's the smartest. He's the funniest. He knows exactly how to tell the temperature in a room. He's not tone deaf. He's the one who can successfully pull this thing off, especially in light of the Kevin Hart fiasco. He's the one who can turn it around.
and he proved that to us 3 years ago when he saved the day last time. Yeah.
Absolutely. He's your save it guy. He's your cleanup guy, and he can do
Can you
it.
do it? Bianca?
How about Tina Fey?
I was gonna say Tina and
She's
Amy.
solid, she has the chops to do it. She's super talented. I would like to see a woman. I don't know. I just think,
I would
And
not be mad at Tina and Amy
Yeah.
doing it. I thought they were so good on the
They would be
road together.
funny.
They were so good.
I'm going to go with Trevor Noah because I think that Trevor Noah, they're trying to play to a younger audience. He is a millennial. He automatically knows how to play the social game. His behind the scenes, when he came to the Emmys for the first time in LA, he was documenting through his own Instagram. Hilarious. So just to what he could probably do from a backstage perspective. Also, there's something to be said about an outsider. He's not a Hollywood
That's a
guy,
great call.
you know. And so I actually put this on Twitter and Facebook, and it got a lot of like support.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
Yeah, so I think Trevor Noah. I think he's super smart. And we're in this political crossover of Hollywood and politics. I think Trevor Noah.
Have we scanned his Twitter feed though? I
He
have
already went
have we
through.
vetted him?
He already went through that when he first got the Daily Show.
Yeah.
So he's good.
And
That's
he's
right,
good
they vetted
now.
him.
He's good
they
to
vetted
go.
him.
Good
They
choice,
vetted it,
Joseph.
so it's good.
All right.
So that's my pick.
I think your pick was the best of all of them, and I hate you for
Actually,
that.
Yeah.
I know.
That was
I
really
know.
good.
I think you're right.
It's a good
What
I
about
agree.
Melissa McCarthy? She would be good.
I love her.
I
She
love
would
her.
be great. Yeah, she would be great too. What about, I don't know what to say, can Trevor Noah and Melissa McCarthy, do they have chemistry to do it together?
I
That
think
would
they're
be
both
nice.
too big.
They're too big, okay.
They're both too big.
Okay.
I'm just scared to put a female and male duo after James Franco and Anne Hathaway.
Oh my God. 'cause that was
Everyone still has
Crap.
PTSD.
Forgot about that.
Oh my God, that was so bad.
Oh, God.
It was
Little
painful to watch.
PTSD there.
Jeez Louise.
Okay, so moving on to another.
Sorry, that was so bad. Oh,
Yeah,
God.
it was pretty painful.
Oh, they were
It was
painful.
a busy week this week.
It was a busy week. So we're gonna move to we're gonna talk Les Moonves, another bombshell
boy.
New York Times report. So in this report, for viewers, Les Moonves was fired as the president of all of CBS after a bombshell article from the New Yorker came out about, obviously sexual misconduct, sexual harassment. And then the New York Times just this week, CBS had hired a outside law firm to investigate this, which hats off because they were one of the first networks to hire a third-party firm. I love all this inter-investigation that goes on from MeToo. Anyway, this article was so damning. It basically accused him through the leaked report from the lawyers that conducted the interview. He obstructed the investigation throughout when they were trying to investigate to try to save himself. There were details saying a CBS employee appeared to be on call for oral sex. It was transactional. A board member knew about the allegation, and then there was also this business about a secret resignation letter. It just goes into deeper details of all of the nonsense that was going on and how he was sexually harassing and misbehaving. And then up until it says when he then met, I guess, Julie Chen, who he was actually, I believe, married
He was married.
He
at
was.
the time
And
when
she
they
was an employee.
and she was an employee when they met. And supposedly once he married her, the hanky panky stopped. With this new his $120 million parachute,
Severance package,
is in jeopardy now, rightfully so. I guess where I want to focus, because I think there's not much more to be said about. I think that this investigation has told us what we need to know. What do you think about Julie Chen Moonves' then future? They just announced that she's going to still come back for Celebrity Big Brother, and she is still standing by her one and only original statement that she stands by. What do you think that this means for her future? Can she possibly stay at CBS after all of this? Long term.
I think it would be very difficult for her to stay. And I think that she is still there because she's under contract.
Yes.
It's a long-term contract, and I think they're probably waiting for that contract to run out.
Yeah. Which
Here's the thing. I was thinking about this as I was driving here, and I thought to myself, these are some of the same questions we asked when it came to Bill and Hillary.
I was
Clinton.
just thinking the same thing.
And here's what I remember people getting very angry during the election cycle when Donald Trump brought a bevy of women who claimed that they had been sexually harassed or sexually assaulted by Bill Clinton. And everybody I knew that was Democratic or very pro-Hillary saying, well, Hillary isn't responsible for what her husband did or didn't do.
Yes.
And I'm not hearing that now when we're talking about Les Moonves and Julie Chen. Is it a different situation? I mean, Julie Chen is not accused of
doing
harassing or doing anything improper or illegal at CBS, not at CBS, anywhere at all. Nobody has made allegations against her. So I don't understand why her job or future would be in jeopardy with CBS unless they wanted to go with someone younger or the ratings were down. Any of those reasons outside of
But if you
those?
look at how she may have gotten her opportunities in the company, she was dating her superior.
Right.
And when they first started dating, she was a correspondent or reading the news on CBS This Morning.
Right.
And then she kept rising and rising through the ranks, and to the point where she had the talk, she was the lead person on the talk, and also Big Brother. So that brings into question: did she get these opportunities because of who she was?
And she
sleeping
wouldn't be
with?
the only one in the history of
No.
this industry to
Yeah.
You're right.
marry their boss or get opportunities.
No,
Chelsea
she's
Handler,
not.
one that we
But-
could say,
but when you
there's a lot of
factor in
things
all
about.
the allegations, and the difference with Bill and Hillary, the one woman that we know worked for Bill was Monica Lewinsky, who was
Correct.
an intern. But supposedly, all these women were doing business with Les Moonves. We had the woman who said she was in a business meeting and
Correct.
he threw her against the wall. We
Yeah.
have women who say he derailed their careers
Correct.
because they would not have sexual relations with him. So I think the dynamics are different.
Well, you know
from
what's
the Bill
interesting in
Clinton
this report,
dynamics.
though?
Yeah.
The report brings all these women forward that are alleging all these things, but the report doesn't say anything about Julie and about whether or not they thought that her rise in her career at this network was because of her relationship with Les. It doesn't say any of that in
Yeah.
that report. So
Yeah.
we need, even though we can think it, even though we feel it, there's no concrete evidence that this third-party organization or third-party law firm is even alleging that her career is rising because of that. So
But we don't know what the full report says.
Right,
We
right.
only know about the parts that the New York Times has reported on
Correct.
that they say they've seen. So I would be interested to see the full report when it comes out, if it's made it publicly available.
I think this is going to come down to whether or not they stay together. I think if she stays with him, it is increasingly difficult for her to stay at CBS. I think if she leaves him, it's a little bit easier.
Probably
Yes.
the timing of all of it.
I-
Just a
well,
few
that's
days
what I was
ago,
just
she
gonna-
said she was going to stand by him. It was the page 6. She said,
Page 6 article.
true
Yes.
believer that
So-
all the claims of this misconduct were false over the past few months. She was standing by him and says she will be.
Okay.
So this is my problem. We have a very powerful contingency of women behind Time's Up, okay? And last year, for the last 12 months, it's believe women, Julie being even a part of that. Is it not believe women because now it's her husband, Les Moonves? Because what happened to believe all women?
So
To me, it's like she's giving a middle finger to. She's saying all of these are false, just like
well, she's pulling Alina Dunham. You remember when it was all about believing women or believing women when they make allegations against men until one of the men she was friends with, and then Lena said, well, wait, slow down.
Yes.
I know this guy, and I don't think you have the whole story, and I don't think you know him like
Yeah.
I know him, when it was in her
and then
backyard.
she just rescinded this
Then
week
she had to rescind the
at
statement.
Billboard.
So,
Yeah.
so it does, like I said, bringing back to what I said, it does believe, it always comes down to your proximity to the person and your relationship to the person is whether or not you want to invoke the Time's Up, And I think that's troubling to me in this time that we live in.
It's troubling to me how she's dug her heels since this. She not only just said she stands by him with all of this evidence pointing to the fact that this has happened, then she added his last name, which she's never used before, on air, to, when she first returned to Big Brother. To me, it's just appalling. Because I think about it, think about this. She works for CBS, who has commissioned a report, and the report is saying, because if they're going to not give him his severance, then they're taking this evidence to be true. And now she's directly saying these are false against the company that employs her. So there's got to be disparity clauses that.
Though, at the end of the day, at the very least, I don't even know why Julie would want to still work
Yeah,
for CBS.
I
To be
think-
honest with you, when it's all said and done, the kind of environment that is there now post Les Moonves, would she even want to be there? Because he was her greatest defender anyway. And so whenever a contract dispute, whenever something comes up, why would she even want to be in that environment?
I worked at the Talk briefly, and Julie, with all due respect, Julie walked around with kind of like a regal air because of who she was, right? She was Les Moonves' wife.
Yeah.
And my husband's Bentley is sitting around the corner, and he sits up in that office. You know what I mean? Like, Julie walked around like the queen of CBS.
And you're not the only one that said that.
Right. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way, because, Julie, I don't think she's a bad person. So her air at CBS is very special. I'm sure that it is different now.
Right.
This is kind of like the Colin Kaepernick, why do you want to go back to the NFL kind of conversation. Like, this is a very difficult space for you to be in. But, like, I also feel like if she wants to keep her job, like, I feel like she should be able to.
Right. That's what
Okay.
But maybe
and
there's a timing thing of this. Maybe we don't know because they're reducing her role. She's now just a Big Brother. So maybe CBS is just trying to slowly phase her out where she can maybe salvage some of her
see,
dignity,
I
and they
don't-
don't look like they're trying to push her out.
I
Maybe
don't think
they
it's
just
that.
are
I don't think
loving
it's
it.
that. I don't think she wanted to go back to the talk. I don't know how she could have possibly sat at the table.
She
like
I don't know
that.
how she
Yeah,
could
she
have.
could.
Yeah,
She
I
could
think
not
I don't think
have.
she wanted to go back to that table. So I feel like that was like a mutual agreement. I feel like Big Brother is a place where she doesn't ever have to talk about issues.
No,
she can
yeah.
just talk about head of household and who
But-
just got eliminated.
But
Yeah.
if they told her if she walked away, wouldn't CBS also be suspect to like, oh, and she's lost her job now, her marriage fell
It can look
apart
like
and everything.
retaliation.
It could. So it's like they have to. It's a very delicate dance I think they're doing, and we don't know that maybe when all the dust settles and he doesn't get his settlement, this
Yeah.
$120 million severance,
think that
maybe
what's-
she'll divorce him and leave. We don't know what's really going on. So
Yes.
I think it's too early to say. Perhaps I don't know. That's just a
I
feeling
think
I'm
the
getting. It's a
spotlight
corporate.
and the career that Julie Chen used to have is over. You know, even if she goes someplace else outside of CBS, there's no other network that's probably going to give her the type of power and the type of spotlight that she had with the talk or with CBS in general.
Which I think is really unfortunate because it's something that he did.
Correct.
Which again makes it a Bill and Hillary
Right,
situation.
that's what I was
It
saying.
does.
I think Julie is a very talented host. I think she's a great journalist, and I think that she's done really good work. I think that there's the double-edged sword of like doing good work and being the boss's wife, and that like catapulting you in a way.
Yes.
And like there's no real way to measure like,
No.
well, would
It's
she
always
have
been
moved up?
hard.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
always hard when you're dating somebody of power at work. That's
Yeah.
just the risk that you take. You know, the risk is you could move up a lot quicker than other people. The risk is you could fall a lot quicker
lot
than
quicker.
other people. It's both sides, you know.
In terms of this final report, I think it will be interesting to see the repercussions because it sounds like this was going on for a long time at
Yes.
CBS, and there may have been some type of cover-up.
Yes.
Who was aware of what was
Right.
happening, especially with the employee who was allegedly on call to service
Yes.
Mr. Moonves.
Yes.
So I think it will be interesting to see who else gets caught up in this investigation.
And let me tell you, I guarantee you there are other executives in town that might also have somebody on call that are probably very worried right now.
Right now.
Because if you think that Les Moonves is the only person in Hollywood that's behaving like this, then
Les Moonves and Matt Lauer and Harvey Weinstein
Right.
and OCK and like
there are others that we don't even know about.
Charlie Rose.
there are more that we don't know about than we do know
Correct,
about.
I agree,
Absolutely.
100%.
I think the worst thing CBS could do is like not hire a woman to permanently replace Les. Like they really.
Well, okay, so that's the other interesting part of this. Like, not to get too like industry insider, but
No,
like,
but we can.
This whole thing started really in the middle of like CBS's acquisition or the whole Redstone
With the
Viacom
Redstone,
situation
yeah.
thing. And so like I don't think it was a coincidence that this happened at the timing that it did. I am almost positive like the other forces were like, do some oppo on him. Let's find out
Yeah.
what we can do to get rid of him.
Yes.
That is not to say that what he did was right or
right,
anything
yeah.
like that, but I'm sure that this
Yeah.
timing was strategic.
Was strategic.
Absolutely.
I think Julie Chen should get on the phone with Georgina Chapman.
Right.
What do I do next? How did you
Ooh, that could
how do
be
we
an interesting
recover?
conversation.
You know?
That sure
There's needs to be a
would be.
support group, right, for these
Yes.
wives. I mean,
I think Julie Chen does need to do a sit-down interview and talk about how this has been for her if she wants to save her career.
Look, she
Thank
needs to go to
you.
Oprah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. She needs
That's,
to go to Oprah.
That's what I feel. Like it's like I don't think it's okay to just that she gets to just stand by that statement when there's so much more expected of people who have these kind of controversies like that hit their career, and they're expected before that
Correct.
comeback happens to sit down and talk about it. Like
Right.
I feel like we need to hear from her. Like
Yeah.
she's a journalist too. She knows this.
I
Yes,
halfway
she
agree
absolutely
with you. I think that also depends though on if she stays or leaves. I think if she stays with her husband, I don't think she has to come out and like speak against him.
Yeah.
I think if she leaves him, she can come out and say like this is why this was so difficult. I do imagine that she'll probably leave him at some point, but like I think once the dust settles a little bit, we'll see that page 6 headline. You know, Julie Chen and Les Moonves to
Let me throw
to divorce.
something more hypothetical at you, though, for a second. So if Les Moonves in the New York Times report was doing all this obstruction work, okay, to basically save himself,
Correct.
you know, she's his wife, okay? So if she put out that statement where it was so convincing that he's going to be cleared of all this, what if she did know that he was doing he's like, I did this, and now don't worry, I'm taking care of it because I'm doing all this obstruction, and she knew it. She's like completely complicit in all of this.
but what was she supposed to say?
But so you still don't think she has any part
no,
of that?
because they're not. This report is about his actions
Yeah.
and the things he was doing that were not only illegal, it's against the law,
Yeah.
employment law, that he's breaking the law as well as company policy. Her listening to him and agreeing or disagreeing isn't against company policy. If you break the law and I say, yeah, I agree with you, I didn't break the law,
and
you
then,
did.
And then from like a state and federal law standpoint, like she's protected because she's his wife, so she
Correct.
doesn't have to like
Yeah.
testify against him or come out against him.
Very true.
I don't envy Julie Chen in this situation.
No.
And I don't have like, Julie, you need to do this, girl, because I'm like, she is in a really
Tough spot.
Thank you, because I
Very
almost
tough
used a
spot.
different word.
So
But like,
tough.
she's in a really, really difficult position. I've never been like in love with Julie Chen, but I think she's talented and smart and capable. And I think I can't imagine being in a much more difficult spot than hers.
Yeah, because as you talked about, she was where she was, and your life completely can change in a moment in
Yeah.
time. It's hard. So we don't
But those
really
people
know.
have plenty of money; they'll be fine.
Yeah.
Well,
No
okay,
doubt.
so then that's to just end this conversation. Is there any redemption or a possible way for Les Moonves to come back, or is he completely
hell
done?
no.
No.
He's like Harvey?
Let me
Hell
tell you,
no.
He's just Harvey without the jail cell.
Yeah, well, Harvey is
The
trying to
potential
come
to-
back. He's
yeah.
trying to come back, but he even is tone deaf. So no,
Hell no.
Harvey's out. Les Moonves is out. Charlie Rose is out.
Matt Lauer, hell no.
No.
Look,
yeah.
look,
Yeah.
what's the guy CK who tried
Louis
to come back?
CK.
Louis
Louis
CK.
CK.
And people were insulted that he even attempted to come back. So no, that the answer
Except
is
for
no.
his audience that gave him a standing O, like he was so put upon after, like,
Well, I will say that in these situations, I always ask, like, okay, but are all people unredeemable?
Yeah.
And like the first time I really thought about this was with Chris Brown and Rihanna. I actually got in trouble for. Never mind, that's a different conversation. But like, I wonder, like, is no one redeemable? Like, is no act redeemable? And like, mind you, I'm not looking to hire Les Moonves for something. Like, he's
Yeah.
gonna be fine. But I do think, like, at some point, like, do these people have to go away forever? Can they never work again? Can they never be seen in public again? Like the first time I thought this was with Chris Brown and thinking like the next person he dates, they're going to be like, oh, she's so stupid. Like, is he never allowed to date anyone again? And I think the same kind of things happen in these situations where these people go away for at least a time, but like, do they never come back? Do they never get to work again? Do they never get to make money? How are they supposed to live their
Well,
life?
there's so many of them. We need to have like an island. They all can go.
Well,
Like Kevin
right.
Spacey's
Yeah.
over there. We put them all over there.
We need a
Hollywood
Bachelor in
Castaway
Paradise for them to go, right?
It's a
yeah.
reality show.
But I think when you talk about years upon years of alleged abuse with Harvey Weinstein, with
Absolutely.
Bill Cosby, this behavior went on for so long, I just don't think this person can be rehabilitated.
You know, the thing is, too,
Fair.
what I find a little bit insulting, why do we worry so much about the abuser? And we never, ever, ever are concerned about the victim. We're not asking about all those women whose careers may have been ruined by Les, or
Yes.
may have been ruined by Bill Cosby, or may have been ruined by Harvey Weinstein. All those people who just got out of the business because
Yeah.
they couldn't make it, or because they were
Whose names
blacklisted,
we may never
or
know.
who aren't
Yeah.
making any money now, who are struggling, living off of residual checks. We
Yep.
never worry about that, but we're always concerned about the guy who's making all kinds of crazy millions. I think that says something about our society.
And not
We're
to
even
mention the
asking.
Patriarchy
mental,
is real.
and sort of emotional anguish that also comes along with
Right.
that is couldn't be a lifelong kind of
Right.
Yeah,
sentence.
The victims are re-victimized when we don't acknowledge their
Correct.
voice. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely right.
So before we wrap up, Overheard Hollywood is a little segment that we talk about some work you may be doing, something you're hearing out in the field. Anita, I hear you got some hot exclusives over at Urban Hollywood.
Yeah, Urban Hollywood 411. So in the last week we had a story, Matt Carey, who covered, I don't remember the awards ceremony, but he spoke with, now, sorry, I can't think, I'm tired. But anyway, I'll move on to the next issue. I also have an exclusive on the film Green Book, and Green Book did very well in the Golden Globe nominations, which was very surprising because the musician, Mr.
Correct.
Shirley, his family has said there were many things about this film that are not true. And also some African-American film critics have called it, quote, a white savior film. So what's really interesting and what I reported on was that Hollywood has embraced this film, the critics groups, The Golden Globes, the National Board of Review named it their best picture. However, others are saying not so fast. There is a lot about this movie that is not true. So head over to, Urban Hollywood 411 to check out the story.
I also thought that Green Book could have been ruined Oscar-wise when Vigo had.
Yes,
Vigo.
yes.
It seems that they accepted the apology and they moved. Mahershala Ali did accept that and they moved on. So that didn't affect it so far.
Which is surprising. Yeah.
Jarrett?
This past week, The Hollywood Reporter came out with this big story about these 63 black female writers, and there's no excuse to be able to find a black female writer. There are no black female writers at The Hollywood Reporter or at Variety.
What?
There are no black male writers at Variety or at The Hollywood Reporter.
Really?
And I think it is despicable. And I think these two companies, and then The Hollywood Reporter came out the next day and said, we have this whole initiative on diversity and we're going to be doing this whole pipeline. Nowhere in that did it say anything about their newsroom. And as a journalist and a person that advocates for journalists, I think that is disgusting. And I think that these companies continue to make huge pronouncements and money and all that on using black and brown faces to say these things are happening, and and the Variety had a cover 3 years ago during Oscars So White saying shame on us, but that was 3 years ago and there's still not a black person in that newsroom.
You literally went down the masthead?
Literally went down every single one of them.
Because I had worked previously, full disclosure, at Hollywood Reporter, and we definitely had African-American writers and reporters at the time. But that was 2010 when Janice was still there. Janice, by the way, champion of diversity. So a lot could have changed with the changing of the guard.
Sure.
Right
the Hollywood Reporter, I was there for a while, but they have plenty of freelancers who are people of color, but there are no people on staff.
So not on staff. So we should clarify that. Not on staff. But they do have free. Okay. KJ.
I want to make it a little bit lighter, move away from that.
What do you mean?
Thank you. I want to talk about Gabrielle Union's interview, one-on-one sit down with Oprah, where she talked about the ability to not be able to have children of her own, and the fact that she had so many miscarriages and they had to use a surrogate. I love seeing that. I love seeing her embrace that. I don't think we see enough of that in the black and brown community, where we talk about the blended family, where we talk about the fact that there may be miscarriages. I love that loving image that they put out there, and we don't see enough of that. I just wanted to give her kudos for that. I mean, if you guys haven't caught it, catch it. It's just talking about, there are other ways to have a family other than physically giving birth to a child, and I love that.
I saw a clip from the interview. She said that she tried 7 or 8 times.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. And she was concerned. She even said that in the interview that she wasn't going to be able to give him his own child, and she wanted to say let everybody know that look, you can be a mother to a child even if you don't give birth to them, because so many people are just caught on that if they don't give birth they're not a mother. And she wants people to know that it can happen to anybody, even someone like her who's beautiful, who's rich and famous, still has problems.
She's so stunning, by the way. She still looks like she did in Bring It On.
Right. Of course, she looked that way too.
Stunning.
It was also nice for her to talk about being a stepmother and how she said a lot of people don't realize that even though she's a stepmother and she loves being that way, she doesn't really have any legal rights. You know what I mean? She said people forget that. If something were to happen to him, she's not legally responsible for that. So you have to give that love and attention, but at the end of the day, if something happens, your rights go away because you're not the real, liable. So I just love that nice, glowing interview. It's positive.
Nice, happy note. Bianca de la Garza, go ahead.
Thanks for having me here.
Thank you for filling in.
Yeah, it's
This
been
was
great.
a treat. Can you please tell our viewers and listeners where they can find Meet the Hollywood Press?
Absolutely, because you don't want to miss us every week. You can watch us on AfterBuzzTV. You can catch us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts as well. Subscribe to us. We even let you rate us and give us reviews. Be kind. No trolling, okay? Follow us if you're not already on Facebook. On Instagram, it is at Meet the Hollywood Press, and on Twitter, Meet the HWDP Press.
Yes, correct.
DPW?
HWD Press. I know someone owns our handle. I keep saying this for we're 3 months in and I'm still saying this.
You know who you are. Give it to us. Joseph, you're the best. And
Thank
great
you.
panel today.
Thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.